Hey guys, what's up? Welcome back to Stormworks, and we are once again working on our lifting body, tanker, Awacs, everything plane. I am just kind of flying it around right now. This is going to kind of be what it looks like towards the end of the video, but I wanted to show it off. We're going to drop some bombs just because it's fun, and you guys can see we're going to detail up the control surfaces and try to make it look a little bit better in this episode. So that's kind of what we got in store for today. And then next episode, we're going to work a little bit more on detailing the exterior, as in kind of working on some of those doors, like the ones on the side and the one in the rear and whatnot. We'll get those looking a lot better and finally get a door in place, and eventually we'll put some weapons on it. So that's coming soon. But in this episode, we got to fix the mess of control surfaces that we added in the last episode. And I think that it will end up looking a lot more like a finished plane, as you guys can see in this clip here. So definitely stick around, stay tuned for that. But other than that, we are going to get right into the building. So if you guys like this series, don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button. Keep coming back for more. We've got plenty of these videos coming. We're still working on our oil rig. And, we're just going to keep cranking out these builds on Stormworks. So this is kind of where we left the plane off. You guys can kind of see once I get into the cockpit here. Let me just get this out of the hangar real quick. But you guys can see that we've got control surfaces all over this, and they look horrible. We got giant holes on the roof and whatnot. So we're going to be trying to pretty that up a little bit today. And I'll also kind of mention all of the pink stuff that you guys see on the plane. Those are wing blocks. So I like to paint them pink just so we kind of know where they are. If not, it's kind of hard to tell. So this is kind of where we left off last episode. We got it flying just kind of barely, almost crashed into the mountain there. But yeah, so we're going to be working on kind of the control surfaces in this one. And the first thing we're going to do is get rid of the old ones. And then I am going to actually put a little indentation in the end of the wings here, so we can kind of fold control surfaces into it, and I think that'll make them look a lot better. Now, you don't have to do this. You can just use the normal control surfaces or rudders if you'd like. Honestly, they're actually a little bit better. The large control surfaces aren't as efficient, I'll say. So if you do want to go about that with the normal control surfaces, I kind of recommend it. It's a lot simpler. Also, control surfaces act really weird when you put them on a separate physics body in this game. So just kind of keep that in mind. But yeah, that's kind of what we're going to work on. So I'm going to let the time lapse roll. We're going to get these folded into the wing nice and proper, and then we will come back and check it out. All right, so you guys can see that we have this kind of line that sticks out that is going to tuck into that groove we made in the wing, and I put a connector on the end of it so it kind of locks into place. So you don't have to put the connector there. I would say if you're going to do something like this, I definitely recommend it. It's going to kind of work out a lot better for you. The pivots, first of all, if it gets damaged, it's going to just flop all over the place and you're going to lose some control. But the other thing too is it'll just kind of make it a little bit stronger and more connected to the overall aircraft. So there's going to be a lot of different physics bodies, especially once we get into the cockpit, that are going to basically lock in place. And so I would recommend, if you guys are building your own planes, if you can, try to do the same thing. Try to kind of lock it in place with either a connector or a hard point or something. That'll make it kind of wobble around and be a lot less kind of weird and derpy. So I would just recommend, if you are doing something like that, definitely try to lock it in place. I know it's not always possible, but anyways, enough of that. We've got this long bar that we can fit into the wing, and I'm just going to actually push them back one more block so we can fit the larger control surfaces on it. And I think that'll probably look a little bit better. I don't want to have a ton of control surfaces on this thing. And you guys will also see once we get into the engines towards the back that they are actually going to have a lot more control surfaces than the wing themselves. So kind of what I was talking about earlier with using the rudders is we're going to do that with the engines, and that'll give us a lot more control authority than just these wings will. So I'm just going to unlock that, make sure it locks back into place, and that looks good. So we should be able to connect our control surfaces now, and then we can move on into the other parts of the build, like the engine. All right, well, we are moving on to the engine. You guys can see we got our control surfaces on the wings hooked up. So we got our pitch and our roll, and that looks like it was working good. I just had to flip them around quick. I had them backwards, which is kind of like the USB thing where it seems like every time you do it, it's wrong twice. But anyways, enough of that. I am just going to kind of work on making shrouds for these fans and make it look a little bit better. So I'm going to be working on an intake, and then we're going to surround these in control surfaces too. So I started off trying to use the larger ones, but that doesn't really work because they are not the same length, and I don't want it to be unsymmetrical. So we're going to actually stick a bunch of these small ones in, and I think it's kind of going to look good because it almost looks like a nozzle on like a jet engine that kind of opens and closes and whatnot. But the other nice thing about it is because we have so many control surfaces on these engines, it'll give us a lot more control authority over the ship itself. So that is going to be what we're doing back here. And then I'm going to work on the back side, or the front side technically, of these to kind of make an intake. And that will kind of be just kind of basic. It's not going to be too complicated. It's going to be like a jet engine intake. So it will just have a little area that slopes down into the ducted fans, almost like a, I guess, Venturi, but not really. And we're going to put some blocks in there so you can't really get in there and nobody can get sucked into the fans, which would be funny, but also not good. So obviously when we go to hook these up, the up and down fans are going to be for our pitch, and then the left and right will be for our yaw. What else I'm going to do though is I'm going to add a kind of add block in there, so the pitch on the right engine and the left engine are different, so you can also have some roll authority as well. So if you recall us flying a couple of minutes ago, the roll, it was working, but we were rolling quite slowly, and I would like to make that a little bit faster. So that is one easy way we can do that, since we have two engines on each side. Now they're not very far apart, so I mean, I guess they are pretty far apart in comparison to most planes, but in this sense, they aren't going to have like a lot of mechanical leverage because of the distance between them, but it's something to add and it will help. So any little bit helps. And right now we are just kind of working on that intake that I was talking about. So I'm adding these 1x4 slopes that are going to come and reach the ceiling of the plane. Let me change the color of this for you guys just so it's a little easier to see. And we are going to dig this out a little bit further. We're probably going to have to bring the top of the engines forward a little bit. But yeah, that's essentially the kind of shape we're going for. So you can see it's a nice smooth place for the air to come in. And you guys, you don't have to do this. This is just something I'm doing because I think it looks nice and it will be a little bit more realistic for our very unrealistic plane. But you guys can see we put the strakes in there, which kind of prevent people from going in, and otherwise you would be able to just kind of walk in there or crawl in there and bad things could happen. So little protection for our engine. I'm just going to add these slopes on the side to make it a little bit more rounded all the way around, and I think that will help it look a lot better too. So let me change this with a full pipe, and then we will get it all painted up and check it out. Alright, well, we are on our test flight, and we don't have everything hooked up exactly like I want it to, but I just wanted to make sure everything was working fine, and you guys can see it seems to be controlling quite well. We have pretty good pitch authority, especially for a plane of this size. I think it's still lagging a little bit in the roll department, so we might have to put more control surfaces inside the wings for that, but that is not too much of an issue. Now we're going to come in and try to land this in a horrible way, so definitely not the safest approach, but see if we can just land it straight into the hangar. And I'm just going to start throttling back quick. That's something we're going to have to work on a little bit too, just so we don't cut the throttle too much like we just did. and see if I can straighten out a little, which not the easiest landing, not the nicest on the plane, but we didn't break anything, so that is good to know. And looks like their steering gear is working fine too, so we can head right back into the hangar and start working on this thing again. Well, I think the first order of business here is to add a little bit more roll authority. So I am going to tuck some of these rudders into the wing, which normally I don't love doing this kind of stuff, but you know, it is what it is. This isn't going to be a very realistic build. We're going to make it VTOL with zero length rotors later on. So that in itself kind of makes it a very unrealistic build. But anyways, we're just going to add a couple more of these rudders. I'm going to tweak our PIDs a little bit so we can have a little bit more power. I think the extra 5 RPS is probably going to really help us out. And, you know, to be honest, it's actually going to go higher once we get the rotors in place. So it's kind of funny because, you know, obviously this is me speaking from the future. When the thing is in hover mode, the plane is in hover mode, we need actually less RPS than we do to drive the ducted fans. And the plane is actually not going to be super fast. So right now the max speed is about 180 knots, which is quite slow for a jet. But, you know, I don't want to crank our jet engines up to, you know, 60, 70. That's just because it's going to be horrible on fuel efficiency. So we'll kind of try to figure that out a little bit later on. I'm not super concerned about the speed of this thing. It doesn't need to be very speedy. My only concern in that regard is that some planes, mostly jets, are going to have a harder time doing the mid-air refueling. And that's kind of something that we'll tackle a little bit later on in the coming episodes. So we're just going on another little test flight here. I see our landing gear is being a little goofy, so we'll have to look into that a little bit more. And I just kind of wanted to, you know, walk around and check it out on the inside. It looks like there is tons of space on the inside here, which is fun. And I fell out, so we're just going to go right back to the workbench and keep working on this. So I'm going to see if we can figure out what's wrong with the landing gear. I think it's this extra pair of struts, which we shouldn't need 4 of them, but we're just going to give that a test and see if that makes them a little bit happier. But anyways, that is just about all the building we got in store for today's episode. So like I said, in the next episode, we are going to start working on some of the doors, and eventually, hopefully, we'll get a machine gun into each one of the doors. I think you guys will really like that. That mechanism is super cool. And then after we do that, we're going to start working on the refueling drogues and probe. So that is one of the main functions of this thing, is it's got to do mid-air refueling. So we've got to definitely figure that out. And it's going to do diesel and jet fuel. So we've got to do multiple pipes for each one, but that's not really too hard to do. It's just a couple valves. Other than that, we've really just got to do a ton of Lua work on that, and you guys won't really see too much of that just because it's very time consuming and it's a lot of in and out of the workbench. And I figured you probably don't want to watch me do Lua, but I promise you there's going to be a ton of really, really cool screens in this. But anyways, that is, again, all we have for today's episode. So if you guys stayed to the end, thank you so much. I appreciate it. And I will definitely catch you guys in the next one. I hope you all have a wonderful rest of your day.